Certificate of Integrative Medicine. Okay, I am here to give a basic understanding of Ayurveda and role in medicine. Let me start right away. Okay, Ayurveda and yoga share, common history of evolution. Um, in terms of placement or positioning both the systems, uh, Ayurveda was the Vaidyaka, or it is the medical system. Yoga was, although it was a part of the healing systems, but the objective of yoga was to take the human being from health to super health. That was the objective of yoga, the final objective of yoga. But during which period it will take, yoga will take through various stages of healing also. Now, Atharva Veda has been considered as, for those of you uh, um, who are familiar with Atharva Veda, for who are not familiar, Atharva Veda is one of the four Vedas of the ancient Indian or the ancient Hindu textbooks. Ayurveda has been or is said to be Upaveda of Atharva Veda, an offshoot of Atharva Veda. And all the time period that is given is the time, which has been sort of deciphered based on historical evidences. It is not exactly the same date because the knowledge systems in India were transmitted through what is known as Shruti, means the Guru teaches it to the Shishya. Only in the later part of the time, the the concept of writing down started, and after that it has gone through a lot of changes. There were times when all these were destroyed. There were times when a lot of things happened. So these dates do not take into account those things, but at least for the sake of history, these are the dates that have been recorded. Somewhere around 6 to 2 BC, Charaka and Shushruta were written, and 6 CE Vagbata, 8 CV Madhava. These are some of there are many other texts that are there, but these are some of the important texts that were written to enrich the knowledge on Ayurveda. In the later part of the history, Kaviraj Gangadhar Roy in 1798, he contributed a lot. In 1995, the India recognized Indian systems of medicine and started a department which came to be known as Ayush in 2003. It's an acronym for Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Ayurveda, Yoga and Naturopathy, Y, U, Unani, S for Siddha, and Soarikpa. Soarikpa is a system of medicine practiced in Tibet, Bhutan, and such places. H for homeopathy. Then independence and surrounding that period, there were committees that were constituted to define the systems, recognition of systems of medicine. So Bhor committee was there, Chopra committee was there in 1948, and then Udupa committee made some very important recommendations that were that fulfilled the need for integrative medicine, that is to fulfill the systems of medicine. Like the modern system, evidence-based system had come up, but then there was also necessity for the Ayurveda, yoga, and most of the Indian systems of medicine that could complement the healing process. Then we had the Srivastava report of 1975 that talked about integrations of system, and then many such things happened. In the recent times, the national education policy of the country, and also WHO has taken up integrative medicine. It also has taken up the cause of traditional systems of medicine all over the world, and there has been a concerted effort to integrate them into the main systems, the modern systems which are prevalent around. Very recently, in August 17th and 18th, the first convention of the World Health Organization happened in Gandhinagar, that is Ahmedabad in Gujarat. And then it is also worthy to note that the Global Center for Traditional Medicine is being established in Jamnagar in Gujarat. And then this convention called for rejuvenation of traditional systems of medicine. And then it also gave a clarion call to take up the integrative healthcare as an important agenda in the health systems. The WHO has taken up the task of giving a definition and also charting a policy for the member states to follow in integrative health. So this is a bit of history and also to give a background of what is happening around. NIMHANS actually pioneered in terms of one of the pioneers bringing about the integration of yoga and Ayurveda into modern allopathic system of medicine. There is a modern biomedical system of medicine. Here, I would like to mention that I would like to make a special mention of NIMHANS because here we have followed a model where yoga, Ayurveda, and modern biomedical system they function in tandem, both in three domains. That is clinical services or patient care, research, and also academics. This course is one such example. We also have other courses, that mainstream courses recognized by the the country. So the model that we follow is all the experts, we consult the patient at the same time and then optimize the treatment based on the requirement with the consensus of all the experts. Currently, we see in most of the places, there are co-location based treatment, wherein the patient can approach an Ayurveda practitioner or an yoga practitioner or a modern biomedical practitioner by choice, which is also very important part of the integrative healthcare. But here, the model is to actually help the patient to decide what is best for him. The doctors at the systemic level, we come to a consensus and prescribe and optimize the treatment, which can comprise of modern biomedical system, yoga, and Ayurveda, all three. So this is the model that we are following, and we are keeping in the spirit of WHO convention that has recently concluded. So from here, I will take you to a small, journey to the basic concepts of Ayurveda and how this system looks at human body, and then what it talks about in terms of healing. So yeah, the text, all the texts, they start with 4 purusharthas, that is the 4 aims of life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma is a person's duty. Artha is economics, in the sense that a human being when he lives, he needs some resources to live, and all that which comes under resources or earning resources is artha. Kama is the desire, how he acquires things based on the desires, and moksha is how he walks in the path of liberation, or keeps in the spirit of nothing is my own. It's all for to support my life, and in the end it belongs to somebody else. It belongs to the nature. So this is moksha, in very general terms. So Ayurveda is a term comprising of Ayu and Veda. Ayu means life and Veda means science. Ayurveda has been designed, or was designed, to help a human being achieve dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, which means it has all the principles that can guide a person in all the four pursuits he can take up and live, a healthy life, mentally, physically, and then fulfill the dharma, artha, and kama, moksha. So there are two aims of the science: swasthasya swasthya rakshana, which means to protect and promote a person's health, and vikara prashamana. And in case he has a disease, or if there is a diseased person, how to cure him of the disease. These are the two objectives of the science which has been mentioned. Okay. We look at how the aspects have been talked about. There is very little in Ayurveda that talks of what we know of as modern biomedical biology. All these are abstract principles, and these principles apply to the functions of the human body. Now, it stems from the origin of the creation, which is here. It's important for us to understand the sattva, rajas, tamas in two aspects. We all have known sattva, rajas, tamas as gunas, which is true. And we also know rajas and tamas as doshas, which is also true. Now, rajas and tamas are doshas of manas in the context of physiology and pathophysiology. Whereas in the context of origin of creation, it is the sattva, rajas, tamas as gunas. Now, these gunas indicate, very simple, rajas is a forward movement or an excitation or aggression, whatever we may call, and tamas is something gravitational, or something that pulls. When rajas and tamas are in equilibrium, it is sattva. So all these or these three gunas, they play a very important role in the creation, which means that in all the substances that we see, for example, a rock is Prithvi, and it is more of tamasic guna, whereas wind is Vayu is air or wind, and it has more of rajasic guna. So when there is a balance of these two, certain substances are formed. And what are these substances that are formed? Basic structural domains of all substances, including living and non-living things, have been classified or have been told as composed of 5 basic elements: Prithvi, that is earth; up, water; Teja is fire; Vayu is air; and Akasha is space or ether. Which means that these substances, or these 5 primordial elements, they play an important role in forming the structural composition of living and non-living things. When it comes to functional domain, the concept of three doshas, vata, pitta, and kapha, have been described. So, Prithvi, that is earth, and water, that is up, both of these form kapha. Up and Teja, that is fire and water, form pitta. Vayu and Akasha form kapha. So there is more of tamas in Prithvi, in up sattva, in Teja sattva, and Vayu and Akasha. Vayu is more of rajas, and Akasha is more of Sattva based on the gunas, which means that Vayu has a tendency to move, mobility, that is Rajas. And then that which has the ability to transform or to burn is fire. And then that which is in between or that which maintains balance is Sattva. So here, these three, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they form a role. This is the science has devised this method or technology to decipher the human body as well as the environment around him, which means that, okay, I'll come to that later. When we understand the doshas are nothing which can be seen as an entity. They are doshas should be understood. One is based on function, and second is the behavior of the physiology or the pathway or how the function is happening. Based on that, it is derived whether there is vata, there is pitta or kapha. Now, if I go into each and every gunas, it will be a little time taking, but I will give you some examples. Vata is supposed to have ruksha or dryness. Pitta is composed of ushna or heat, and kapha is composed of snigdha. So let's say we have dryness of the skin, which means that there is an increase of vata in the body. So we look at the agents that can relieve a person of dryness. So what is that relieves the person of dryness is oil. So if there is vata, we apply oil on the skin and the skin becomes moist. So that is kapha. Let's say we have lot of shita. There is another guna known as shita in vata, that is more of cold. So a person might be feeling very cold. That is, a feeling that he might be having. And there are health implications of coldness. So what happens? Coldness also induces rigidity. Ability to be mobile also gets reduced. So what do? We have to use heat, either use warm clothes or go near the fire. So we come out of the effects of that coldness. So this is shita. So similarly, there are so many other. It can also happen that a person can become very, very, more gravitational, immobile, not very, active and so on. So that is when he has to indulge or do things that can reduce kapha, which means increase vata. So which means that if there is a disease, then a disease is understood as the derangement or vitiation of these vata, pitta and kapha. And when we identify that a particular symptom is either more or less, a particular dosha is implicated, and then look for food, herbs, and also behaviors that are opposite to that. So let's say if a person is very gravitational or tamasic or doesn't move, then the behavioral intervention is he has to go out and exercise. If he is very gravitational and if he is feeling very sleepy and very lazy, then he has to take light food, because if he takes heavy food, he will again go into kapha or vitiated kapha condition. So he has to eat less food. So when he eat less food, the lightness in the body increases. Vata starts increasing a little more, and then he can get rid of the sthimitata or less mobility or mandata or slowness. These are very simple examples that I'm giving. So the treatment consists not only of eating a herb or taking a herb or applying something on the body, it also consists of bringing in change in the behavior to modulate vata, pitta and kapha. Okay. Now, when we go to next, what happens in the body? In the body, the Vata Pitta Kapha are the doshas, and the composition of the body has been also described to contain 7 dhatus or tissues. Rasa is the fluid tissue, Rakta is the blood, Mamsa is muscle, Meda is adipose or fat, Asti is bone, Majja is marrow, and Shukra is the reproductive material. Now, these tissues have the doshas residing in it, which means if there is rasa dhatu, or let's say rakta dhatu has in it the pitta dosha, which means if pitta dosha gets vitiated, the first dhatu that it affects is rakta. And if kapha dosha gets vitiated, then it can affect either mamsa, meda, majja, or rasa. Let's take the example of diabetes. Diabetes generally is, especially the type 2 diabetes, I'm taking example of that, is generally known to be caused due to over satiation, or there is more energy in the body which is accumulated and less expenditure of the energy, which leads to pathophysiology that leads to diabetes mellitus. So the person is advised to eat low calorific diet. Now, this happens also because of etiological factors where the person is not very following a lifestyle that makes him fit. So he accumulates a lot of kapha, that is gravitational, and kapha goes on and on accumulating and then gets disturbed and starts vitiating or starts affecting the dhatus where it is present, that is mamsa, meda, majja, and shukra. So that's when you have, it happens in phases or stages, and then all these things get affected. We can see over a period of time that there is dhatu kshaya. The person becomes thin, the person starts losing important elements of the body, and the nutrition gets compromised, the lipid metabolism, the muscle metabolism gets affected, and then you can also see that the person gets into infertility, his reproductive abilities go down. So this we see over a period of time. So this is one example, the satiation or more of accumulation leading to vitiation of kapha dosha, which is residing in the dhatus like mamsa, meda, majja, and shukra getting affected, and then the disease manifestation starts. So the treatment obviously will be to reduce kapha and enhance vata at that particular stage. So this was another example of how there are deeper meanings and deeper concepts to it, but then this is simple way of understanding how the doshas and dushyas have been understood in Ayurvedic perspective, and how a particular pathophysiology is understood. Now, dosha has been named dosha because the Sanskrit meaning is dushyanti iti dosha. Dushyanti iti dosha means that the by default these doshas have or are always looking at vitiating the body, because they dominate a human body based on various factors. Let's say in terms of age. In the beginning of the age, kapha is more. In the middle, it is pitta, and in the end, it is vata. So you can see children suffering from kapha, cold-related disorders, and in madhyavaya, pitta dominates, and in the end, that is in the old age, vata dominates, and diseases are also seen in the same way. During the day, kapha is more in the beginning of the day. In the midday, it is pitta, and in the end, it is vata. Similarly, in the night, and also during eating of food. Apart from that, even seasons, winter and spring are known to be not so good for kapha, because kapha gets vitiated during those seasons. Rainy and autumn is a season where pitta gets deranged, and summer and rainy are seasons where Vata gets deranged. So here, to understand this, we might have to go a little deeper, but then what we need to know now is that doshas are very, very dynamic. Every moment the doshas are looking at one opportunity to cause a disease. So it is the duty of the individual to see that that particular dosha is controlled and not allow that dosha to get vitiated in the end. Otherwise, he might develop a particular disease. So in health, the effort is to see that these three doshas are balanced, which means if kapha is more in winter and spring, it becomes our duty to see that we do or we follow a lifestyle that reduces kapha. That is the the summary of the whole thing. And also looking at a person's age and also day night, so diurnal variations and seasonal variations of doshas have been described, and if they're not handled there at that particular time, they might be troublesome later. So yeah, this is what we talked of, and this is a figure that talks about kapha, pitta, and vata. This is during the day, and this is during the night. That's how we saw. And another concept that we speak about is prakriti. Prakriti is a concept that describes how a person is born in terms of vata, pitta, and kapha, which plays an important role in determining his physical, psychological, that is behavioral, and physiological, domains. In the sense that a Vata Prakriti person generally does not have the tendency to store. He has the tendency to spend. So thin, active, mobile people are generally, they belong to Vata Prakriti. Pitta Prakriti people are, they have more of heat. They generally tend to get diseases related to heat, and they are a little aggressive. They have more anger. Vata Prakriti is an unpredictable person. And Kapha Prakriti, there is a lot of gravity, which means he accumulates more tendency to become fat and then act very slow and so on. So Kapha Prakriti needs depletion and motivation. Pitta Prakriti needs a lot of advice on food and behavior. Vata Prakriti can indulge in nourishing himself. So this and more to this has been described. Now, what is its relevance in disease is if we know a person's Prakriti, it is very easy to understand the symptomatology and also to treat, which means if there is a patient suffering from a disease like depression, depression is also known to keep the person, asociality, anhedonia, disinterestedness, and so on. So this is a presentation of kapha. So he needs to be motivated in a manner that his vata becomes a little more active. So that is how the disease can be understood. In kapha prakriti, if there is depression, it might be little difficult to motivate him more. Whereas if a vata prakriti has or he is suffering from depression, it is easy to motivate him and control his disease. So things like that, it helps. So there have been, of late, there have been many studies on, this Prakriti. Genome-wide analysis of Ayurveda Prakriti has been done. So, and it helps in personalized medicine. Some genes have been identified, in different Prakritis. And then also there are, this is another study which talks of Kapha Prakriti and, certain genes which actually support the descriptions. And plasma metabolomics have also been studied of this Prakriti. Then effect of walking on physiological variants with reference to as per Prakriti, which means, this study looked at how a person with diabetes responded to treatment based on the Prakriti. Immunophenotyping has been done on human Prakriti. There was also a recent study of Prakriti analysis of COVID-19 patients, and then association of Kaphaja and Kapha Pitta Prakriti with different other types of alleles with diabetes. So like this, there have been many studies in terms of Prakriti, which gives us an evidence of how the descriptions of Prakriti have been told, and then how it relates to how it this can be understood in the modern biological terms. So then when we talk of prevention, we discussed on the variations of doshas diurnally, and to control that, dinacharya and rutucharya, another faculty will be taking in detail about what dinacharya and rutucharya is. Basically, dinacharya is a daily regimen which has to be followed in a way to control the doshas that have been that are seen as dominant during that period. So what do we do as soon as we get up? And what do we do in the afternoon? What is the kind of food that you have to take, and what is the behavior that we should be doing? So this dinacharya talks of all these regimen that needs to be followed. One example I would give is abhyanga, or oil massage. Oil massage has been told to be done every day to to be able to keep a person healthy. And in summer, because there is a lot of heat, there is a lot of dryness. Vata and Pitta are more, as we understood. So oil reduces that, and that's how the oil massage is something which helps. So things like that. And there are different about ahara, that is food, how a person has to take food, and then how it helps the person to counter these doshas. So in detailed descriptions of how to understand the nature of food. What do we mean by nature of food? If you take a food, and if that food is easy to digest and at the same time nourishing, then it is a good food. But if you take a food that is very heavy to digest and gives you overnourishment, then it is a guru ahara. So understand that. And once you understand how to process it, that is the karana, and then what food needs to be combined with each other is something which is very important. We don't combine Ushna Virya and Shita Virya together. For example, mango milkshake is something which is not to be taken, because milk is Shita Virya, mango is Ushna Virya. So that is not so good. And if you can also see that if you have been taking mango milkshake for a long time, your digestion gets a little haywire. So things like that. And Rashi is how much quantity. Place is to see which food available at what place is important. Generally, it is suggested that take food that is grown there. Do not standardize or do not uniformize the food that we take. So if in South India, people take more of rice. In North India, people take more of wheat. Keep it that way. If you happen to go to North India, slowly adapt to eating wheat. And if a person comes to South India, slowly adapt to eating rice and certain vegetables and so on, the mode of preparation and so on. So Kala, the time, depending on the stage of the disease, time of the disease, time of the day. Upayoga Samstha is, what are the rules? How do we eat food? Always eat warm food. Always eat food with a bit of fat in it, things like that. And how a person should be while eating food. Be very mindful of taking the diet. Do not see screen, TV, mobile, and so on, and eat food, but focus on the food. Have a very good opinion on the food, enjoy and relish the food. So most of these have been dealt in terms of food. And then these are then the other thing is rutucharya, which a later faculty, another faculty will take a class on that. But generally, it means that what should be the food habits, what should be the behavior, and what should be the thought process in various seasons that we see. And the descriptions of which dosha is vitiated during that particular time has been given, and what one person should do. For example, in winter kapha, we discussed in Grishma, there is Vata. So, things like that. And then apart from that, in the promotional aspects, health, especially in the context of mental health, Achara, Rasayana, and Sadvritta has been described. Vyavaharika Sadvritta is ethical codes of conduct. Samajika Sadvritta is social codes. Manasika Sadvritta is mental codes. Dharmika Sadvritta is moral codes of conduct. And Sharirika Sadvritta is physical codes of conduct. From how many days one should shave and have a haircut, from there to how he should speak to his friends, to his students, to his guru, to how he should behave in the night, which are the places that he should avoid, and how he should conduct himself, what are the thought processes that he should entertain, and what thought processes he should not entertain, and also how to keep self-care himself, self-hygiene, how to keep good care of his own body. All these things for health promotion have been described. So these are promotional aspects. And then, I would like to just share a few papers that we have seen in, we have done research on, or there are papers that talk of, good evidence supporting the, healing properties of Ayurveda. This was in depression. And then there was another publication in Lancet which talked about how mental health care has been there, and how it has evolved in India. And there is another study which talks of the effect of an Ayurveda formulation called Manasamitra Vataka in general anxiety disorder. And then in Ayurveda treatment in ischemic stroke, and how useful it was. And then there was all those studies were done at NIMHANS, and these are the studies which have been done elsewhere. This was one of the very important studies that talked of how Ayurveda medicine was very effective in it was in treatment of rheumatoid arthritis, and then heart rate variability analysis and assessment of dosha balance. Then Ayurvedic, the effect of Ayurveda medicine in schizophrenia, in Panchakarma therapies of, the effect of Panchakarma therapies in schizophrenia, in ischemic stroke, and then in cerebral ataxia, again in ischemic stroke. And then this was Guillain-Barré syndrome. This study was done by us. This was a case report, how Ayurveda and yoga therapies were given, and then how the person recovered, spinocerebellar ataxia, and so on. There are many other research studies that are going on at NIMHANS in the treatment of migraine, the treatment of Parkinson's disease, and in attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, and then also trying to look at Prakriti suffering from neuropsychiatric disorders. All these are efforts undertaken to generate more and more evidence so that this can get into the mainstream healthcare and also help in integration. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. I can take some questions if there are any.
So there is one in the chat box.
It says, are there any cross-sectional RCTs available on Samyoga Viruddhahara? RCTs, I'm sure there are no, but There are a couple of I think there is one study. I think I don't remember it right now. I can. I'll just check and get back to you.
Anybody else, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself. You have been given permission to unmute in case you want to ask a question. Hello, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir. One question. Hello.
Yes, sir. Parag, sir.
Yeah. These days, because of climate change, the seasons have also changed. It's raining even in November and December, and there is October. It's very hot. So, how do you adjust this to the Ritucharya?
Kishore, sir.
Kishore, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Kishore, you are still on mute.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Sir, I'll get back to you after I answer Jeevan's question. The Mula Prakriti of a person is that which is determined during conception. That is Shukra Shonita Samyoga. That cannot be changed. But then there are so many other factors that determine a person's Prakriti, which can be due to many factors, like the race, the place where he belongs, the kind of culture that the person is exposed to, and so on. These can be changed, but Mula Prakriti cannot be changed. It remains the same till he dies. So, yeah, that is the description that we find, that Mula Prakriti cannot be changed. And the sir's question, Dr. I think Parag sir's question, yeah. There is this concept. Ayurveda has one chapter that dedicates on various natural various changes that occur in in the environment. So the terminologies that have been used is Vyapanna Rutu and Avyapanna Rutu. Vyapat means disturbance. So Vyapanna and Avyapanna. Vyapanna Rutu or Vyapat. Rutu Vyapat means disturbed seasons. And that is what Paragji was trying to tell us, that we have seen that the whole of the world, there is a disturbance in the natural occurrence. And Ayurveda also has said that one of the very important reason for the Rutu to get Vyapat, that is disturbed, is the human being himself. So he says, if a person does adharma doesn't, it's not in the context of spiritual, it is not in the context of what we generally have to hear. Dharma has been used, for example, yuga dharma, or yuga dharma is a dharma that the characteristic features of that yuga. Rutu dharma or dravya dharma. If you take tulasi, it should reduce some kapha. It is the root. It is the dharma of that herb. So it is the the basic duties. So adharma is when person does things that are not congenial to the atmosphere. So when it accumulates, it results in Vyapanna Rutu and Avyapanna Rutu. And there is a chapter known as Janapado Dhvamsa, wherein Charaka describes that because of these, Janapada Dhvamsa. Janapada is, used to denote a region, a geographical region. Dhvamsa is when the whole, when all the people in that Janapada die because of a common disease. So Janapado Dhvamsa also has been told as due to adharma of the human being. So when that happens, it is Vyapanna Rutu. When there is Vyapanna Rutu, accordingly, the person has to modify his diet. For example, in August, or in these are in August, a few days ago, it was just like Grishma, that is summer. So Grishma Rutucharya has to be followed. And if the rain continues for a long time, that particular Rutucharya has been followed. So based on whatever Charya has been described, and based on how the Rutus have changed, it has to be followed. And that is the advice that Charaka gives. Do non-living things have Vata Pitta Kapha dosha? No. I just described that Panchamahabhautik composition is common to everything that is existent. Whenever you see dynamism, whenever you see there is function, then only Vata, Pitta and Kapha are contextual. You give example of skin having dosha, but some have patches of dry and oily. Do we assign, how do we assign their dosha? No, I was not, I was giving an example of how to understand a particular dosha in the context of healing. Let's say if there is a person whose skin is dry, we would say that there is increased Vata dosha. And to relieve him of that dryness and all the symptoms that are associated with dryness, use oil. So which is a little bit of kapha. So when you use the oil, the dryness goes away. So that gives us to understand that oil or snigdha is vata hara, or it reduces vata. That was the example that I was giving. If you want to know more about the skin diseases and what the doshas are, you can find them in most of the Ayurveda texts. So some have patches of dry and oily, these can be, part of diseases, and they can be handled, by pharmacological and other dietary modifications. That's a different domain altogether. Sir, do the same principles apply for childhood disorders like ADHD, asthma, autism? Yes, these principles apply for all the diseases. What is Ayurgenomics and what are its applications? Ayurgenomics is the concept that was developed by a group of people, and Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan is prominent among them. Now, Ayurgenomics was given to a concept wherein a personal, the objective was to achieve personalized medicine. To understand a person, let's say we're talking of Prakriti, and I showed some papers. I'm sorry I could not dwell much time on them. When we look at those Prakritis, it is possible to find certain genes that express certain traits or certain functions. So if it is possible to identify these genes and associate them with that Prakriti, it validates the concepts of Ayurveda and also helps in achieving personalized medicine. Now, to give an example, there are some medicines, even in the modern biomedical system also, if there is a medicine that is taken by 5 different people belonging to different Prakritis, the half-life or the therapeutic action might differ in each of them. And this is something which they call as pharmacogenomics. And the body processes this particular medicine in a way, and the effect is got. So for example, if you have taken paracetamol, a person who's pyrexic, one person might start feeling better just in 20 minutes. Another person might take 60 minutes. So that is how the person is, metabolizing the medicine. So this is, something which I was talking of paracetamol. But in Ayurveda, the different medicines are given to the person based on the person's Prakriti, and based on that, he processes, or the therapeutic effect can be estimated, and the dosage also is determined. So that is the advantage of knowing the Prakriti. And Ayurgenomics is something that is trying to decipher this with the modern evidences. Sir, could you please recommend any books for easy understanding of Ayurveda and non-Ayurveda practitioners? Okay, you can look at, I can give a list which can be mailed to all of you, which we will do it as a part of the course. You will be given, books for reference. Don't worry on that. How to balance dosha on adult autism. Adult autism is also considered, or autism generally is considered to be um, a disease that involves both vata and kapha. So balancing dosha in autism has, pharmacological, approach where certain medicines are used, and also certain behavioral changes. And if it is adult, mostly yoga and yogic principles achieve a lot in controlling the vata dosha. Both pharmacological approach as well as yogic approach are very important in, and we have also been treating a couple of patients with adult autism with very good results. Nadi Parikshan is a part of Ayurveda. Can we learn and practice? I'm so sorry, I'm not an expert in Nadi Pariksha. It is possible to understand, know and understand Nadi Pariksha, but it requires a long-term practice. You can look at Nadi Pariksha, a book by Dr. Vasant Lad. He has he has attempted to, try and describe Nadi Pariksha for people, for general people who can look at it and understand what it is. If you know a person who uses Nadi for his diagnosis and has been has been recognized, then you can certainly do it. It's a skill that a person can develop by practice. Thank you. Yeah. So I think there are gut microbiomes and those studies we have also undertaken. And it's not that gut microbiome or skin microbiome has an effect on dosha. It is trying to correlate or trying to find out neurobiological equivalents of Ayurveda descriptions, in the sense that if there is a certain therapeutic effect, what is the status of gut microbiome? If we know, then it gives a very good validation to Ayurveda principles, and also helps in designing the treatment and also prognosticating a particular disease. Thank you so much. So I'll end here. I would like to make way for Dr. Bharat Holla for his continuation, the second lecture series now. For any doubts on these matters, please, you are